Okay, good. Thanks again for joining this the technical user group forum meeting, uh, where we primarily talk about the hybrid cloud management X. And of course, like we had to move this meeting to this week to accommodate the software universe preparation, and we also had the customer advisory board meeting. So that's one of the reasons. So I apologize if anything, it caused any disruption in your day-to-day activities. And I believe you got the invites upfront. So again, thanks for joining this call today. So a regular disclaimer. Again, today I'm not going to talk about any roadmap items, but if I mention anything on the roadmap, just assume that it's confidential and it's not nothing to do with any commitment as such, and the product roadmaps can actually change. So that's the only reason we give this slide. And let's get into the agenda today. So I'm going to do a short introduction about HCMX, because in the last or even the previous meetings, we have been talking about a lot of things about the HCMX, the use cases, the functionalities, and the problems that it solves. And of course, today we are going to talk about a few important aspects. I'll get to that, but I'll keep the introduction very short, and then we will directly get into the actual spotlight, which is day one, HCMX administration and operations. And then we will talk. I'll be showing the next user group topic that we will be showcasing. But again, you can let us know if you have anything in mind, and then you want to share it with us for us to cover anything in the next session. Please put it in the chat, or you can even ask it as a question. So the regular housekeeping. So this forum is for the technical practitioners, primarily the business owners from the customers, and again, the Micro Focus partners and employees who have hands-on experience on HCMX. And of course, it is also for you to listen and to understand various functionalities that helps to solve different types of problem that you day in day out see in your daily IT operations. And all the updates or all the demos, all the talkings that we do, it gets updated into our community page. So if you want to share this with your colleagues or with anyone whom you think or to be part of this group, feel free to share this with them, and we'll be happy to provide all the assistance that are required for them to get onboarded here. And you can anytime unmute your lines and you can speak up. And if you have any questions, do let us know, or you can even put it on the question section, or you can put it on the chat. Well, I mean, we sometimes through share some polls, but I mean, today we are not going to do anything about the polls. And yeah, there is no survey link, so yeah, you can ignore that. And I'm going to just simply I'm going to remove these things and directly go into the core topics. And let me get into the actual topic, which is administration and operation. So why did we even pick this topic? Well, I mean, there are a number of reasons. We received a number of queries from different field team as well as from customers asking about various administrative tasks, like even for setting up a simple LDAP, or even configuring the integration between multiple public cloud, I mean to say public cloud and HCMX, or even how do we even configure a simple RAS or on-premise bridge agent, right? So we heard number of questions in the past, so we thought we have been covering a lot of functionalities and features, and let us cover this administration operation in this session, so that it is one, of course, it will tell you like how easy is the how easy are the steps to configure the administration and operations, meaning various product configuration, or be it financial model configuration, or there are a number of configuration that a customer would do on a day-to-day basis. And this is the agenda I'm going to cover today, and I have categorized into multiple sections: global settings, module settings, and customization. And to start with, I'm going to talk about the RAS and OPB installation. Of course, we covered this in the past, but I've requested one of my colleague to come and present it. Let me see if the person have joined. If not, we can actually skip this
Yes,
because
Alex, I'm
this.
here.
Great, thanks Shiva. Okay, first we will be covering the RAS, how it is set up, and how typically you configure in your environment, and then the operation orchestration configuration settings, and then we'll go into the deployment resource providers and image aggregation configuration. So basically, we would be just taking you through various installation and configuration procedures where that acts as a key point for to access various features, and of course the UI that exposes those features. So I have given a detailed information on this slide. I'm going to upload this in the handout section, so you can also get the information about all of this configuration. And again, this is just for your reference. You can directly access the DocOps portal, which can provide a detailed steps, and it can provide a detailed guidance when you're actually doing this configuration. So all we want to cover is to uh, the high level configurations, or sometimes we will also talk about the installation procedures, and to ensure that you get the knowledge about various types of integrations and various types of configurations that are available as part of the product. So with that, I'm going to give this stage to Shiva, who is going to start us. Who's going to start with the RAS and OPB configuration, and then I'll be taking up and giving you the demo about other various integrations. So over to you, Shiva.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So let me start with sharing the screen. Alex, do I have the permission? Yeah, okay,
Yes, please go ahead.
okay. Uh, are you able to see my screen, Alex, for the RAS?
Yes, yeah, very much. Please go ahead.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, let me start with the first. Let me start with this RAS server. Okay. So now the screen what you're seeing is about the RAS service registered in the our application. So first let me explain what is RAS. Basically, RAS is nothing but a remote action service which can be installed on a Windows as well as a Linux servers. And this RAS will be helping us in providing the required library for content workflows that might be based on a .NET or a Java or Cloud Slang based content, which is internally used in the designs, and also executing the same operations on behalf of the central service. And also by default, if you see, there is an internal RAS available in the central server that is running, and we can add multiple external RAS servers either to load the execution of the content, or target a specific network environment based on the provider. If you see here, we have two different groups already available. One group is RAS operator path, which is the default one, and the other operator path is nothing but external RAS operator path, which we can edit, and we have the options to assign the new group name also. So here in this example, I have given a different name for the external RAS, so that when we are going to execute some provider-based subscriptions, that particular request will be executed from this RAS. Okay, so that is why we are given a different RAS group here. So now let me go back to the RAS server system and just explain the backend how it has been there. Let me open the target server. So here, in this example, I have used the Windows-based RAS server. So by default, the RAS is available installed in target directly wherever we are targeting. So here we have the configurations as well as the logs available inside the RAS. So this is the configuration that is available here. So the RAS, we can use the
Sorry, Shiva, are you speaking? I don't know if it is only for me, or um, even others are not able to hear you. Yeah, even I can't hear. Shiva, okay, let me just. Sorry, I think there is some issue with this line. Looks like, let me quickly pull out. I'm sorry for the troubles here. Or maybe we can go over this RAS and OPV settings. Once Shiva gets back his audio line, and maybe I can start with the other set of configurations. So let me steal the presentation from Shiva. Okay, good. So like I mentioned, let's start with the module settings, where I'm going to walk you through the OO integration, OO designer integration with GitHub, and the design level configuration and offering, and of course the FinOps. So let me go to the designer. So as you know, right, I mean, there is a infrastructure as a code, or automation as a code technology that exists within HCMX, wherein the IT operations team, who are having a dedicated automation team within the group, they will have two options to create the workflows. Of course, the workflow is used for the automation purpose, where you can just use the workflow to connect to any third-party services, or even public cloud, or any database, or if you want to just simply provision a VM. So that's where you will be using the workflows. But if I have to create my own workflow, if I'm a customer, I want to create my own workflow, then I would be using this OO designer to create the workflow. And HCMX provides two ways to create the workflow. And one is, of course, this UI canvas, which can help you to create any kind of workflows, and you should be importing those libraries, where it will be helping you to expose certain operations. I mean to say, these exposes certain operations where you can just simply use it for to create the workflows. Well, that's not the focus for today. I'm just telling you guys that what are the different feature sets, and what are the different benefits that you gain from accessing this orchestration designer. But today we are going to talk about the integration with GitHub, primarily because typically if you're creating a workflow, and like I mentioned, one is of course the canvas based, and another one is the IDE based, a real time in a real time, or maybe if I'm an automation engineer, I'm already using the IDE, and I want to check in the workflow as a code, right? So how do I go about integrating with the GitHub? So here I have a GitHub already created, and a repository already created. So I want to check in all these workflows that I'm creating, irrespective of whether I'm using the UI or IDE. I should be able to push all those workflows into the GitHub. So that's the configuration I'm going to talk about. So it's pretty straightforward. So you can just go import the uh, repository by just simply providing the GitHub URL. So you can just get the um, information uh, from the GitHub. Like for example, I just took this SSH mode of connecting the GitHub repository, and then I simply configured over here. And of course, in the GitHub, you also need to ensure the connection settings are proper in the GitHub side. So that I've already completed. So I'm not covering it in this demo. But once you configure the SSH, automatically the connection will get established, and it will bring the public key, and then you should be able to create a new file, or if you want to check in a new file, you should be able to do it. So here, if you look at, I've created number of files and I've modified number of files. So it is showing up all the details over here. It is typically like when you're using a GitHub in a CLI, if you want to stash or unstash, again, pull the information from the remote repository. All are possible from this single UI, where you don't need to go into any GitHub client or do any kind of operations. So what is the benefit? Of course, one is you should be able to version control your workflow. So any given point in time, you want to go back to the workflow that was working on so and so time period, you should be able to pull it back, and then you should be able to use it. Or if you're actually creating newer workflows and you want to again keep it version controller, everything is already pre-baked in the product. So this is one of the most used feature, at least with respect to the HCMX, wherein we see number of customers have started to adopt the workflow designer, and they're contributing a lot, I believe, even on the community side. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons we want to cover the integration. So the next item I want to cover is the design. So once you create the workflow, then you go on to create the service design. And within the service design, as you know, you will have the resource offerings and components. And resource offerings will have the lifecycle actions where you can refer to, deploy or modify or undeploy. Again, deploy can have a different workflow, and undeploy can have a different workflow, and modify can have a different workflow. But again, that's not the topic for today's. So today we are going to talk about the options that you have within the design, especially when you create a design and after you test, you go on to publish, but and you go on to create a offering, and that is exposed to your end user's catalog. So I as end user can go request for a service, and then the fulfillment engine will take up the request and it will start to execute the instructions, right? So here, for example, I'm actually going with the AWS compute service, where it is going to connect to the AWS service, and then it can actually provision a server. Or maybe if I want to go back to any other simple one, like let's say Azure, that also should be able to help me to. So let's say, for example, this is a Azure service, and I have multiple ways to make sure that whenever anything goes wrong, say for example, if, any failure happens during the fulfillment, the user need not to go recreate the request again. Or maybe if, for example, during the fulfillment, it has to execute like 10 steps, like first reserving the capacity and then going and check if a particular resource exists, and then you may have like 1 to 10 step. And for example, if it fails at the eighth step, you may have to repeat everything from the scratch, which is kind of a pain for both operations team as well as for the end users, because end user, they need to resubmit the request, and for the IT operations team, they have to go clean up the resources if it is not automated, if the cleanup process is not automated. So to avoid that, the product brings in the configuration at the design level to make the fulfillment pause on error, so that I as an admin, I can go look into the issue, I can go fix that issue, and I can actually come and resume the execution. So that saves the time for both IT operations team as well as for the end users. So for example, here, this Azure Compute Advanced design, what if it fails, and how does the IT operations team can respond to it, is what I'm going to quickly show you. And this is a simple configuration at the design level, so that I as a service designer can actually configure this at the design level. In the previous evolution version of the HCMX or the predecessors, those products allows you to configure these kind of information at the org level, and it is applied for all the designs. But here in HCMX, we have provided at the design level, so that each design can be controlled via these configurations. So let me go into the operations console to show you how when a fulfillment fails and how the product reacts to it. So here, if you look at, I have number of subscriptions, and this is the one which I just triggered, and I kind of simulated a failure here. So when I configure a pause on failure, what happens is it actually pauses, and here if you look at I can go and check why it has failed. Of course, I have an option to go check the overflows, but I also have got logs that actually can tell me like what has gone wrong with this issue. So it looks like, some of the there is an issue with custom provider selection wherein the resource provider is not accessible. So, well, I can just go, check the resource provider and I should be able to fix the issue instantly. And then I can come back and then resume. And while I'm resuming, I have two options. The product provides two options. One is I can rerun the failed actions. Let's say, for example, it is going in provisioning a service and it actually did not provision, it stopped there, and I want to rerun this action. So in that case, I would just choose rerun failed action. Or maybe there can be another scenario wherein the server has been created. Now the fulfillment plan is actually installing a software. So in that case, probably I would not go and rerun it. I would just simply go and continue with the software installation. So then in that case, I can skip the failed action and then I can continue with that. So IT admin is given a choice to make at the time of resuming, and accordingly the product will take it and then it will continue to execute. So that is one of the configuration item you get out of the box within the product. And the next item I want to cover is, so we saw operation orchestration, workflow designer, how you can integrate with GitHub, kind of a version controller tool. And at the design level, what level of configuration the service designer can actually make it to save time and effort for both end users as well as for the IT operations team. And I'm going to show you the next thing, which is the offering level configurations. Of course, in HCMX, we can do multiple level of configurations, but I'm going to keep it at a very high level. Let's take an example of the same Azure Compute Cloud Slang. So here, if you look at some of the configuration comes out of the box. Let's say, for example, the rules, which are nothing but the validation policies to ensure the inputs, whatever are provided by the end users, are valid or actually meeting the compliance standards or the standards that the company have already put in place, right? Or even to check if it is a valid input for this particular request. So this gets automatically created and I don't need to go create anything. But if you want to add more conditions or policies, you can still do it. And the product can actually, the UA can automatically validate the input and then it will throw up the warning for the user. And primarily, I want to show the fulfillment plan, which is again, an automated one for every offering that you create. Automatically, a fulfillment plan will get attached to the offering. But you can have a default fulfillment plan, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So here, if you go, you can actually, create a new plan that will help you to create a execution, and as well as for the, when I say execution, the deploy, modify, and undeploy, and also you can actually create a approval workflow. So for example, here I created a task plan which consists of like a simple approval workflows, which I just created from the scratch because the product doesn't give you any out of the box approval workflows, but it can help you to create any kind of workflow, single tier or multi level. So you can create any number of workflows. So here is what I just created, a simple one. So here, if you look at it, goes and checks the subscription action type, and if it is create, it will take you through a different workflow, and if it is update, a different workflow get executed, and if it is a cancel, a different workflow get invoked. So here in this create, I have an option to set the workflow users, in the sense who needs to approve this, whether a single user or a group of user, that you can define over here. So for example, here I can attach a user group which can come from a LDAP group also. And these are all represented as functional group within HCMX. And you can also, add a condition, like say, for example, I want to ensure that the workflow gets triggered only if the cost of the offering goes beyond $100 or €100 or 100, yeah. So any currency for whatever you're going to set it in the offering. So you can also put a condition so that that particular approval workflow get triggered. If not, it will become an auto approval. So that is one of the configuration that you can make. And as far as the fulfillment, again, you don't need to create any of this because the product automatically creates it for you. But if you want to add any automation steps on top of this, you can also do that. I think in one of the previous session we covered it, and I have a scenario where I want to give you a real-time example, and I have it part of this demo, so I'm going to show it at the during that time. A simple example, like for example, a simple example is like you want to change the subscription name with the host name, whatever is created by that particular subscription. Like in a real time, if you have to do it, well, you need to write some automation, and then you have to call some extra scripts in order for to update it. But here it's pretty straightforward and simple by using the task plan. And there is also another mechanism to do it. I'll cover that when I go into the customization part. But I want to update. I want to let you know that here there is an option to add an automated task, which can be a simple overflow, or it can be a REST call, or you can also add a manual task, and this can be completely customized. And once you create a fulfillment plan, it will act as a template, right? So once you create a fulfillment, it will act as a template, and I can attach this template when I am actually adding a D&D aggregation provider. Say for example, here I have created a aggregation provider. And why do you need to create a provider here? The reason being, you need to bring the designs, especially the published designs, into the offering UI. So for that, you create this D&D aggregation provider, and after you create, you can attach the default fulfillment plan, and you can have number of fulfillment plan, but you can by default attach one, so that whenever you automatically create an offering, a default fulfillment get attached to it, and along with the approval flow and the fulfillment flow, so that you don't need to create a separate approval flow for every other offering until unless you need one like that. Otherwise, you want to go with the default one. So here, once you create this fulfillment plan and you associate with the D&D aggregation provider, so now when I go and create a offering, so here if you look at, I have created an offering, and the same default fulfillment plan comes with these workflows get automatically attached, and the approval flow whatever I created also, now it got attached to it. So let me go to the an offering. So this is a simple offering that I already created. And in this task plan, if you look at, I have a multi-level approval, and I have also task plan which is already pre-created. And even if I want to on the fly switch to a different fulfillment plan, I can do it just by selecting any of the fulfillment plan. Say for example, I want to attach another fulfillment plan. Let's say this one. And if I want to make some modification, so I can click on this copy task from fulfillment plan, so that it will become real. And then say, let's say for example, I want to import it, so that I want to do some modifications. So now you see that approval flow is gone, and it is just giving me the same workflow. And now I can actually create any approval workflow from the scratch. And if I want to use this as a template, then I can simply publish this as a fulfillment plan. So it will go over here, so that maybe in the next D&D offering, I should be able to attach that. So you have complete flexibility of creating a fulfillment plan from the scratch, and then make it as a template, and make it available automatically for every offering that you create. And even further to it, if you want to make some modification, customization, you can still do it, and then publish it as a configuration template. So I'm not going to save this. So let me go back. So this is the offering level customization. So let me go quickly check. Uh, so we saw fulfillment plan settings and approval settings. And another thing is the FinOps settings. There is a financial module where it helps you to set the cost and track the cost. And that is what I'm going to cover in the next demo. So any offering that you take, right, there is a pricing module. I hope I'm audible. Let me just quickly check. Okay. Shiva, I hope my screen is visible. I'm audible, right? Or maybe.
Yes, Alex. Yes,
Okay,
Alex.
good. Because I keep talking, I should not forget any input. Okay, good. So here in any of the offering, as you see, right, you have a pricing module, and you can set a currency. I mean, you can set any Europe or euro or USD or Singapore dollar. So you can actually set any currency, and you can also set a base price and a recurring price, and you can set a cadence. In addition to it, you can also set the price for individual units. Like for example, for Linux, you may want to charge like 4.x, and for Windows, you may want to charge 8.x, right? So you can also set it this way. And the price that you set here will be a linear cost, wherein even if you increase the number of units, let's say for example here, I'm actually setting up a price for Linux VM, and even if I create a 5 VM, it is going to still cost me 4.x. Or maybe I'm setting a price for a CPU, right? In the default linear cost calculation, you will not see the product actually calculates a formula like you're giving 6 CPU and 8 GB RAM. It is not going to calculate, okay, $6 plus 8 into $8 plus number of PMs, right? So it doesn't do that calculation by default. It just simply takes the price, and then it is going to attach it to the subscription cost. But what if I need what if I want to bring a non-linear cost and with my own formula? So for example, certain set of data center across different geography may have a different operational cost, right? So you don't want to use the same. Of course, first of all, you don't want to use the same currency, and next thing is you cannot actually set a same price for a VM that is provisioned on in what do you call, in Americas region and Europe region and in India region, right? So each one will have different pricing formulas. I mean to say pricing structure. So in that case, if you want to bring such a formula based pricing, so we provide a studio where you can actually create a studio app where you can define the pricing. So that's what we have done here as an example. And in one of the previous session, we created a pricing studio app, and we also showcased how the pricing can be calculated at runtime, and then set that and that price can be set it as a offering price. So here, if you look at I've got like 3 data centers. One is from AMS Fort Collins, another one is from APJ Bangalore, and another one is in International Bublingen, right? So here I have set the CPU cost. Again, these are all don't go with this number. I just put some random number here, but again, the currency also matters, right? So 300 is not $300 here, 300 rupees, and $4, and this is euros. So don't go with single currency. Of course, you can also introduce a currency over here. So this is my pricing model where I have defined what is the cost of a CPU in AMS and APJ and international. And I want to use this model to set the price at runtime for a given offering. So that's what that's where I use the rules. Say for example, let me take up the simple example here. So this is the vCenter offering where I have used the rules in order to automatically populate the pricing. So here, this is the one. So here, if you look at, I'm actually calling calling a rule which will help me to set the field, and this is out of the box. I did not import or add anything. This is just out of the box rules which I'm just using, where for this price, calculate this. Fetch the information from this pricing table, and you can attach a formula. Like for example, here it goes and checks the data center and number of CPU and the corresponding price for it, and accordingly it multiplies, and then it adds with other resources, and then it sets the price for it. Well, if you think it is like too much confusing, don't worry about it. We will be we will be showing this in number of other dedicated sessions, but all I want to give you the information is if you have a requirement for to implement a linear cost, that is out of the box available, and for non-linear cost, which are formula based pricing, and you have your own formula, there is a framework that is available as part of the product. Like for example, as I mentioned, the studio app can be used in order to create your own pricing model, and then in the rules you can define your own formula, and then the offering will automatically use that formula to set the price. Say for example here, if I go into the end user portal and I'm going to simply request for a new service, let's say the same vCenter service. Let me search for it. Yeah, this is the one. So here, if you look at, so it is it is by default, it is actually picking up the euro, but again I can change anything. Let's say I'm picking up AMS here, and or maybe I'll stick to because I selected the euros, it automatically is picking up the values. I thought we fixed it, but yeah, I'm sorry. But ideally it will also change the currency when I change it, but it looks like we missed to include this in this demo environment, and it automatically lists the data center, and this is where actually you see that pricing gets changed. So here it shows $9, and the moment I select small, it automatically changes to $18. Well, these are all fixed cost, so there is no there is no magic here that it automatically changes. But what if I give a number which actually should get calculated at runtime, and then the value should get automatically adjusted to it. So let me say, let's say 2048, and you see that it has gone to 14.50, and I want, like, say 2 CPU, then accordingly you will see that the pricing gets changed. So this is happening because I have set a formula in the rules, and the rules are reading the value from the pricing table, and accordingly the offering price is getting set. And if I submit this, the subscription cost is going to be $18, and it will get captured in the expense lines. And of course, for different environment, the pricing will accordingly change. So again, in a nutshell, what I want to show you is the product provides enough configuration for you to introduce your own formula, or you want to simply go with your default linear cost, that is also possible in the product. So the next item I want to quickly show you is the financial module. But again, if you talk about financial module, you can even talk like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And if you're really interested to know about the financial module in detail, I can help. I can probably have a separate session. But I want to give an overview of what is the financial module and how it contributes to the FinOps. So in general, FinOps, if you take it right, it has three major pillars: inform, operate, and optimize. And especially in the inform, you need to get the visibility into the cloud spend, or not just the cloud spend. I'm not talking only about the public cloud spend, even the private cloud spend. So here, for example, I showed you in offering where you can actually set the price, but how will you keep track of the subscription cost, and how will you keep track like who is spending in which data center or which cloud, how much they're spending in all of that, right? And that's where you need to have a financial module in place. And in HCMX, we have a financial model, and it's pretty straightforward for you to configure and use it in the day one. So as like any other enterprises, they will have their own fiscal years, so you can go ahead and configure the fiscal years. Like for example, here I have created number of years, and I've added the start date and end date for each of the year. And then you can also configure the accounting periods, because the accounting periods will vary from enterprise to enterprise. In Micro Focus, we have a different accounting period, right? So November it starts, and then it's in October, right? So there is a different accounting period for enterprises. You can also define it, and you can also have different accounting codes for different projects or different work groups, so that also you can define it. And again, you can also define whether it is a credit account or it's a debit account. So credit is wherein you can actually, you're putting the money to this account, and debiting is like you're actually taking the money from this account. And by default, this is the only configuration that you need to do. And these rules are coming out of the box if you're installing the product. Say for example, the logic behind the financial module, wherein whenever a user goes in request for a service, right? The use, let's say database service, the user is going requesting, and there is a cost associated with that. And how does the HCMX capture the cost? And then it tells like what is the current spend and what is the spend for the next 3 months, or maybe 3 weeks, or maybe like the next 3 quarters, right? So that is where you need to define the configuration in this cost allocation rules. So here, first you need to tell the HCMX that whichever the offering that has recurring cost, go watch for it, and then make sure that you track it and then create an expense line. So here, once you define this, you can also mention, yeah, you pick the recurring cost from this entity. Again, you don't need to do anything. This comes by default, and you just need to ensure that these are all in place. And here, what we are doing is like you fetch the information or the cost from this cost center, and then this is the cost type. The cost type could be any dollars, or I mean to say any currencies, and this is for the credit cost center and the credit cost type. So, well, I mean, these are all the basic configuration that you need to do for the financial module. But at the end, what it actually generates. So this is what it generates, where as you see, it provides number of expense lines. It gives me like from where the amount got debited and where the amount got credited. And let's say, for example, here I'm going to show you a projected cost. So this projected cost will give me a forecast of from for the next, like I mentioned, for the next 3 weeks or 3 months, what is the spend. So accordingly, I can go adjust the budget, or if I need to go stop some services, I should be able to go plan for one. Or if I want to further do some optimization, I should be able to just read the data and do the required actions. So, but how do we get this expense lines? And that's what I'm going to quickly show you. So there are two things that you need to do in order to do the configuration. One, every offering that the service provider offers, there is a financial information. Say, for example, here I need to provide the cost center. So this is the provider level cost center. So here I'm going to put it as let's say IT service provider, and the cost type you want to put it as infra. So which means this is the cost center where the amount will be credited to, and you will also have to set a cost center to the people where the amount will be debited, because I'm a user and I'm using the service, I need to pay for you. So the amount will be debited from my cost center and it will be credited to your cost center, and that's the configuration I'm making here. So here in the offering, I've just set the cost center, so the amount will be credited. And again, if I go into the people, so I can just pick let's say Frederick, and you see that there is a cost center associated here. So I can actually put BBM BB R&D, so that the product understands where to deduct the money from. So this is a simple configuration, as I mentioned, right? So these are all already available, pre-baked, and all you need to do is simple configuration to make sure that the expense lines are created automatically. And of course, like one is, again, you can actually get to know the forecast, but more importantly, you can also set the budget and compare the expense versus the budget, and that's the most important piece. Say, for example, here uh, I have already set the budget and I want to see the expense versus the budget. So I can quickly go into this budget, and you see that this one automatically create this report which tells me expense within the budget and the remaining budget and the overspend. So this is a good insight for me to understand where is my current budget standing and where should I go and look for opportunity to do some savings, or maybe I need to expand my budget, right? So that's where I can go into this. I can just double click, it will take me to the expense lines pertaining to that particular budget, and I will get the information about the subscriptions, because each expense lines are tied to an offering, and as you know, a subscription is tied to a offering, right? So that's where I can get the information, who created this expense line, from which subscription it is coming to, and then I can get to the roots, which is the resource that is consuming, and the cost is actually incurred. So I should be able to get to the roots and understand, and then I can do the respective action, whatever I just explained. So these are all, like, the high level configuration, and if you really want to understand the detail level, please please provide your input, and we can actually do a dedicated session, a real-time example we can take, and actually we can show it. So the next item I want to show is the subscription name change. It's a simple customization. Just wanted to show how the product can help you to do more customization and using the APIs or using the over content or using the inbuilt features. So I have two use cases here. One, I mean to say two scenarios. The use case is same. I want to append the host name, whatever is assigned to a particular host to the subscription name, right? So that if I go to the end user catalog, so if I go to the service and assets, I see number of subscriptions, but it doesn't tell me like where my host is. I mean, for example, if I'm looking for a vCenter host, I cannot just directly fetch the information from here. So well, I mean, I have that's an opportunity for implementing a feature here. But with the current feature sets, how do I get to know the host detail, right? So that's the problem I'm trying to solve here. So ideally, I should be able to see the host name so that I can go click on it and then I can do the respective operations. So I have two options. One, for example, let me quickly show you the two ways of doing it. A simple way is the task plan based approach, where uh, you can actually get the input from the user as a host name as the input that you get it, and you can automatically set it when the subscription gets created, and that is pretty straightforward, like I mentioned. And usually the user can actually provide the input if it is a static host name or a static IP address, right? So you can actually get it and automatically you can set it. And how do you set it? So it's simple and straightforward. So you go to the task plan and you can actually go to the create subscription, and you see that there is an option to, here in the display label, you see there is an option to set the subscription name. So what we are doing here is get the related subscription name hyphen and get the user options property, which actually will be able to fetch the host name of that VM that gets provision. So it is pretty straightforward, and it's very easy also to just append the host name to the subscription. But in a real-time environment, or most of the cases, people will use the DHCP, or they may use info blocks to register the IP address and assign it to the host name, right? So how do you handle that kind of situation? Well, it is again simple and straightforward, and you can do it at multiple places, even at the task plan level. But it is easier to do it at the design level, and that's what I'm going to explain. So I can go to the the service design, and so let me go to the vCenter, simple vCenter RO based vCenter. I'm sorry, let me go to this for the name. So this is the one. Okay, this is where I have actually created the logic to automatically bring the yeah. So here, if you look at and again, this is just a simple design which will just go create a VM, and I extract the host name and then I append to it. And if you look at, I have a resource offering where this one goes and creates the VM, and then this resource offering fetches the host name information because I have done a property mapping, and this will help me to append the host name to the subscription. So how do I do it? Well, as you know, the product exposes number of APIs, and one of the APIs to edit the records. And I have created a wrapper. I mean, again, I did not create the wrapper. A person helped me, Arun helped me, to create this. And if you look at, this is nothing but the wrapper to that API where it can go and, modify the subscription name. So what I'm doing here, I get the ID, I get the name to append. Either you can append or you can even update. So update is like you completely change the subscription name with the new name, or you may want to simply append to it with the host name. So uh, so the idea here is to explain how easy it is for you to make any customization based on your day-to-day operation requirements. So so that's pretty much we want to cover. So again, I want to give stage to Shiva, who should still cover the RAS and OPB. So Shiva, if you're ready, you can actually take the screen and then you can talk about the RAS and OPB. Oh, I don't see him. Looks like there is some again technical challenge. So I need to cover one more item from my end, which is the um, what do you call the provider level configurations, which is again an important piece because providers are the one which will help you to connect to the respective public or a private cloud. And in 2022 O2 onwards, we are exposing the worker group at the provider level. So that is one key change that you will actually need to, in the sense you need to do the configuration. And again, that's for a reason because you may have number of RAS servers, and the each provider can be tied to a RAS server, and that's something we want to explain about the RAS if you're new to it. But let's take it in the next session. But I want to cover another one, which is the image aggregation provider. So this is also a key thing where it helps me to collect thousands and thousands of images or the offerings from the marketplace portal. So before I go to the configuration, let me explain the benefit. So if I want to create a simple Tomcat offering, I can actually go ahead and create a Linux or Windows template from my local vCenter, and then I can install the software and then create a template and offer. But that's going to cost me a lot because I need to manage the template, and even if I have to create one, I need to spend a lot of time to do that. So that's where I want to get help from the public cloud vendors, where in the AWS or Azure there are, and GCP there are a number of services that are available, and Tomcat is one of the commonly available services. And I can go ahead and look for a Tomcat service across these providers, and I should be able to compare and contrast, including the price, the service, and compliance items, and then I should be able to select one, then offer it to the end user. But in order to do that, you need to configure the integration, and that's what I'm going to show you. So for example, here I've actually configured Azure provider, where it automatically collects the images. So as you see on the screen, close to 5,000 images, or I mean, when I say images, it's all like compute images. It automatically gets aggregated, and the integration is pretty straightforward. Say for example, here in Azure case, all you need to provide is the connection endpoints. I mean, the client ID, the secret and the subscription ID, and the tenant ID. So it takes all this information and it connects to the Azure and it pulls all the images. I'm sorry, the services from the marketplace portal, and it lists it in the one single UI. And this is one of the provider that you would need to configure. And similarly for the data provider, right? The billing data provider, that is also simple and straightforward. So you need to, for example, here in Azure case, you need to provide the enterprise enrollment number and the bearer token. Typically, the billing account will have this data, so you should be able to pick it up and configure. And there is a detailed steps documented in the DocOps portal, so you can go refer to it. But these are all like simple and straightforward steps. And similarly, for the deployment resource providers, I already talked about. So well, in a nutshell, what we wanted to cover, or like how well you can actually integrate with any public cloud or a private cloud or a third-party services. So that is number one. Secondly, how easily you can configure the day one operations, as I explained, the operation orchestration integration with GitHub, or a simple configuration inside the service design that you want to define, so that the fulfillment will get paused on when there is an error, so the IT operations team can go fix it. So it's a simple configuration that can save a lot of time. And then I also showed the pricing configuration to support linear and the non-linear cost. And I also showed the Studio app, which can help you to store the pricing information, and it can fetch it at runtime. And the big financial module, which can help you to define the financial year accounting periods and cost allocation rules. And also you saw the expense lines and the budget and expense lines comparison, and then the image aggregation provider configuration, and the cost governance configuration provider, right? So those are all the day one configurations. And I know that the customers may not do everything at one shot. They will probably do it at different time period. But we want to show the various configurations which can help them to access to different feature sets which can solve different kind of problems on a day-to-day basis. So I hope this is this was a quite useful session. But do let us know if you want us to cover any other topic. so that we can actually accommodate in the next iterations. So let me go back to the presentation. So I have captured all the required items. And again, I want to make an important announcement. Of course, before that, the next session is going to be the release readiness webinar session for 2020-05. So we are going to cover what's new in 2022-05. So it's going to be again more interesting to show you the new features that we are introducing in the 05 before it is rolled into the market. And we have also launched the SaaS, HCMX SaaS, and it is now available across different geography. And I don't want to talk too much about SaaS because you already are aware of the benefits of the SaaS and why you need to get access to the SaaS. But if you want to get access to HCMX SaaS, feel free to reach out to me, or you can also go request for a free live demo, or you can also request for a free trial, and we will be able to get you the access to the SaaS environment where HCMX is running. So I'm going to put the handout in the handout section, the deck in the handout section. So let me quickly put it so that you can actually access that. And let me know if you have any questions so far, whatever I've covered, or even if you want to connect with me offline, do let me know. So before we log out for the day, let me just quickly put this. Okay, so it is getting uploaded. Okay, it is now available, so you should be able to download the handouts. And you can unmute yourself and you can ask any question, or you can even post it on the chat window or question Q&A panel, so I can answer any questions.